You know how people say life can get a bit monotonous? Well, let me tell you, they're not kidding. It's like you wake up one day, and bam, you're 33, with a decade of marriage under your belt and a couple of kids who are your world. But then, there's this gnawing feeling, like a tiny hole in your favorite sweater that keeps getting bigger. That's where my story starts. I'm not your typical protagonist with a dramatic life story. I'm just me, a regular woman, with a regular job, in a regular town. I work 9 to 5, pick up groceries, make dinner, help with homework, you get the drill. My husband? He's a good man, really. Works his butt off, but that's the problem, he's always working, especially in the evenings. Our schedules are like two ships passing in the night. We're together, but not really together, you know? The loneliness crept up on me slowly. It wasn't just missing my husband, it was missing something. Connection. Excitement, heck, even just adult conversation that wasn't about bills or what's for dinner. So, what do you do when you're lonely? Some people might read a book or binge watch shows. Me, I did something I never thought I'd do. I signed up for a dating site. Yeah, one of those sites, but for people like me, married and not looking to change that, just looking. I can almost hear you judging, but hold on. It wasn't like I dove into this headfirst. It was more like dipping a toe in the water. Curiosity, you know? I just wanted to see what was out there, what I was missing. And for a while, it was innocent. Just browsing profiles, seeing other people in the same boat. It was comforting, in a way. But then, he messaged me. Let's call him Mr. X. He was 27, married too, and just like me, he wasn't looking to upend his life. He just wanted more. Our chats were casual at first. I'd log on after the kids were in bed, and we'd talk about everything and nothing. Movies, music, our dreams, our frustrations. It was easy, you know? Like talking to an old friend. Then we exchanged numbers, texting turned into calls, and before I knew it, I was waiting for his messages, his calls. It was like a drug. I'd feel this rush every time my phone buzzed. We'd talk for hours, late into the night, when the house was quiet, and I felt more alone than ever. We had this connection, it was undeniable. We got each other in a way that felt both exciting and terrifying. The more we talked, the more I wanted to meet him. It was like a craving I couldn't ignore. We set rules, never leave our spouses, keep this our little secret, just two people finding some happiness in this crazy world. I know, it sounds cliché, but at that moment, it felt real, necessary even. So, we planned to meet. I was a bundle of nerves. What if he wasn't what I expected? What if I wasn't what he expected? I remember standing in front of my mirror, second-guessing my outfit, my hair, my everything. But when I finally saw him, it was like all those doubts just melted away. He was everything he seemed online and more. We met at this quiet little coffee shop downtown, the kind where you can sit in a corner and nobody pays you any mind. He walked in, and I swear, my heart skipped a beat. He had this easy smile, you know, the kind that makes you feel like you've known someone forever. And when we talked, it was like we'd been doing this for years. The conversation just flowed, no awkward pauses, no searching for what to say next. It was natural, comfortable, and thrilling all at once. As we sat there, sipping our coffees, I realized something. I wasn't just attracted to him physically, it was more than that. We connected on a level one hadn't experienced in years. He got my jokes, shared his dreams, and listened, really listened, to what I had to say. It's funny how you don't realize what you're missing until you find it again. But then reality hit me. I was a married woman, a mother, sitting across from another woman's husband, feeling things I hadn't felt in a long time. The guilt crept in, but so did the excitement. It was like being on a roller coaster, thrilling and terrifying all at once. We kept seeing each other after that first meeting. It was like we were in our little bubble when we were together. The world outside didn't matter. We'd meet whenever we could sneak away, always careful, always mindful of the lives we were leading outside of our secret rendezvous. Sexually, we were like two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly. It was passionate, intense, and liberating. I'd forgotten what it was like to be wanted in that way, to feel desire. He made me laugh, made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. But every time we said goodbye, a part of me felt sad, empty. It was like coming down from a high, knowing you can't stay in that euphoria forever. I knew what we were doing was wrong. I'd never been unfaithful before, never even thought about it. But here I was, in the middle of an affair, with someone who wasn't my husband. I'd tell myself it was just physical, just a fling. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I was developing feelings for Mr. X, real, strong, scary feelings. So, there I was, caught in this whirlwind of emotion, trying to juggle my secret life with my real life. Every time I looked at my husband, I felt this pang of guilt. He hadn't changed, he was still the man I married. But I had changed, I was doing something I never thought I would, and it was tearing me up inside. But I couldn't stop, I was addicted to the way Mr. X made me feel, to the escape he provided from my everyday life. It was like I was living in two worlds, and I couldn't let go of either. So, there I was, deep in something I never saw coming. Funny how life throws you these curveballs, huh? One minute you're this married, responsible adult, and the next, you're sneaking around like a teenager. The thing with Mr. X wasn't just a one-off thing, it became our little escape from reality. Every chance we got, we'd meet. Sometimes it was just for coffee, other times, well, you know. It was like we were in our own little world when we were together. The conversation, the laughter, the sex, it was all so intense, so real. But with every meeting, the stakes got higher. We were playing with fire, and we both knew it. We had our roles, never leave our spouses, keep it secret, but roles don't stop feelings, do they? And boy, were there feelings. I'd find myself waiting for his texts, getting butterflies when his name popped up on my phone. And when we couldn't meet, I felt this ache, like something was missing. It's crazy how someone can become such a big part of your life so quickly. And then there was my husband. He was still there, still working hard, still the good guy the first married. But it was like I was living a double life. With him, I played the part of the loving wife, the caring mother. But when I was with Mr. X, I was someone else, someone more alive, more vibrant. I know it sounds awful, but it's the truth. The guilt was there, always lurking in the background. I'd look at my husband and kids and feel this pang in my heart. What was I doing? Why was I risking everything for this affair? But then I'd see Mr. X, and all those doubts would just vanish. It's like I was addicted to the way he made me feel, and I couldn't give that up. One night, we got close to getting caught. My husband almost read a text from Mr. X. My heart stopped, I swear. I managed to brush it off, make up some excuse, but it was a wake-up call. We had to be more careful. We couldn't let this thing we had ruin our lives. But careful or not, things were getting complicated. It wasn't just physical anymore. We were sharing parts of ourselves, our hopes, our fears. I found out Mr. X wasn't just some guy looking for a fling. He had his own set of problems, his own unhappy marriage. We were two lost souls finding comfort in each other. One day, he told me he was falling for me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Falling for me? What did that even mean in our situation? We were both married, both had lives and families. There was no future for us, no happy ending. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was real life, and in real life, things get messy. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me was terrified, this was getting too deep, too serious. But another part of me was thrilled. It meant something, didn't it, to have someone care about you that much? I started to look at my husband differently. We'd been together so long, it was like I stopped seeing him. But now, I started to really notice him. The way he'd play with the kids, the way he'd look at me across the dinner table. I realized I still cared about him, maybe even loved him. But it was different from what I felt for Mr. X. It was more comfortable, more familiar, less exciting. The affair continued, but the thrill was starting to fade, replaced by this constant fear of getting caught, this nagging guilt that wouldn't go away. Every time I lied to my husband, every time I snuck out to meet Mr. X, it weighed on me. I was stuck between two worlds, and it was exhausting. One evening, Mr. X and I had a talk. We knew this couldn't go on forever. We were risking too much, hurting too many people. But the thought of ending it, of never seeing him again, was unbearable. So, we made a decision. We'd continue seeing each other, but we'd be more careful, more mindful of the risks. We promised it would just be about us, about the connection we had. No future plans, no false hopes. Just two people finding some happiness in a messed up situation. But promises are easy to make and hard to keep. As the affair went on, the lines started to blur. What started as an escape from loneliness had turned into something complex, something dangerous. I was in deeper than I ever intended, and I didn't know how to get out. If you think affairs are all secret texts and steamy meetups, think again. It's like you're constantly on a tightrope, balancing what you want with what you're supposed to be. And let me tell you, it's exhausting. Mr. X and I, we were in deep. Every stolen moment we had was electric, but it was the moments in between that were killing me. You see, when you're juggling a secret like this, every little thing feels like a potential disaster. Take my husband, for example. He started noticing little changes, why wouldn't he? I was distracted, on edge. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. I could see the questions in his eyes, but he never asked. Not outright, anyway. Maybe he didn't want to know the answers. Maybe I was good at making excuses. Either way, it was this unspoken thing between us, a cloud hanging over our marriage. With Mr. X, it was different. We were in our bubble, a world where we didn't have to worry about responsibilities or consequences. But even that wasn't simple. The more time we spent together, the more I realized this wasn't just a fling. I was catching feelings, and that was dangerous. You don't dive into an affair expecting to fall for the other person. But there I was, falling, and hard. One night, it hit me. We were lying there, in some cheap hotel room, and he was talking about his life, his wife. And I thought, what are we doing? We're not just messing up our lives, we're messing up theirs too. It was like a slap in the face, a wake-up call. But did I end it there? No. I was too far gone. It wasn't just about the sex anymore. We'd talk for hours, about everything and nothing. He understood me in a way no one else did. And I think I did the same for him. It was like we were two pieces of the same puzzle, fitting together just right. But with every secret rendezvous, every lie I told, the guilt was building up. It was like this heavy weight I was carrying around all the time. I'd look at my kids, their innocent faces, and feel like the worst person in the world. They deserved a mother who was present, not one who was sneaking around, living a lie. And then there was this one day, this one moment that changed everything. I was at the grocery store, just doing my usual shopping, and I ran into someone I knew. She was asking about my family, how things were going, the usual small talk. But then she said something about how lucky I was, how my husband and I seemed to have the perfect marriage. It was like a punch to the gut, if only she knew. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything. My husband, my kids, Mr. X. What was I doing to all of us? This wasn't a game, it was our lives. And I was messing it all up. I started to pull away from Mr. X, but it wasn't easy. He could sense something was wrong, and we had this big, emotional confrontation. It was messy, full of tears and things we couldn't take back. He asked me what I wanted, and the truth was, I didn't know. I wanted him, but I also wanted my family. I wanted everything to be okay, but I knew it couldn't be. Not like this. Things with my husband were strained, too. It was like we were living together, but we weren't really together. We were like roommates, co-parenting and sharing a house, but not much else. The connection we used to have was gone, buried under layers of lies and secrets. So, there I was, stuck between two men, two lives. With Mr. X, I felt alive, desired, understood. But with my husband, there was history, a family, a life we'd built together. It was like I was at a crossroads, and I had no idea which way to go. The affair was at its height, but so was the turmoil. I was being torn in different directions, and I knew I couldn't keep it up. Something had to give, I had to make a choice, but the thought of choosing was terrifying. That's the thing about affairs. They start as this exciting escape from reality, but they quickly turn into a trap, one where every choice seems impossible, every step feels like a mistake. And I was right in the middle of it, trying to figure out how to fix the mess I'd made. Life's funny, you know. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, it throws a curveball that knocks you off your feet. And let me tell you, I was about to face one hell of a curveball. The affair with Mr. X was like a house of cards, fragile and ready to collapse at any moment. And collapse it did, in a way I never saw coming. It all started with this unexpected twist, something that changed everything. I was at work, just a regular day, you know? Then I get this call from Mr. X. He sounded off, like something was really wrong. Turns out, his wife had found out. Not about me, specifically, but she knew he was up to something. The way he talked, all panicked and desperate, it was like a bucket of cold water over my head. This wasn't a game, we were playing with people's lives, real lives. I remember hanging up and just sitting there, feeling like the worst person in the world. How did I get here? How did I become this person who lies, cheats, and hurts the people she loves? It was like I was waking up from a dream, a really bad one. Then came the confrontation with my lover. We met up, and it was tense, full of anger and accusations. He was scared, I was scared, and for the first time, we were truly honest with each other. We talked about ending it, about how we couldn't keep doing this to our families. But even as we said it, I could feel the pull, the connection that wasn't just going to disappear. Around the same time, something was happening in my marriage. My husband, who'd been distant and busy for so long, started changing. It was like he sensed he was losing me. He began making an effort, coming home earlier, trying to reconnect. It was sweet, in a way, but also heartbreaking. Where was this man when I needed him most? One evening, he sat me down and asked me point blank if I was happy. It wasn't an accusation, more like a genuine, concerned question. I didn't know what to say. The truth, a lie? I ended up saying something vague, but it hung in the air between us, this big, unsaid truth. I was at a crossroads. On one side, there was Mr. X, passion, excitement, something that felt like love. On the other, my husband, stability, history, my family. I knew I had to choose, but how do you choose when each option feels like losing something vital? The decision to end the affair wasn't easy. It came after a lot of tears, a lot of soul searching. I met Mr. X for what we both knew would be the last time. It was emotional, saying goodbye to someone who'd become such a big part of my life. We didn't end it with anger or accusations, just a sad acceptance that this was the right thing to do. Walking away from that hotel room was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I felt like I was leaving a part of myself behind. But I also knew it was time to face the music, to try and fix the life I'd nearly destroyed. Coming clean to my husband was the next step. I didn't tell him everything, just that I'd been unhappy, that I felt we'd drifted apart. It was a half-truth, but it was all I could give him. To my surprise, he listened. He really listened, and for the first time in a long time, we talked. Really talked. We decided to give our marriage another shot. It wasn't going to be easy, fixing something that had been broken for so long. But we both wanted to try, for us, for our kids. So, that's chapter 4. The affair ends, my marriage hangs by a thread, and I'm left trying to piece together the remnants of my life. It's not a happy ending, not yet. But it's a start, a chance to make things right. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for. You ever have one of those moments where everything just feels broken? That was me, after ending things with Mr. X. It's like I was walking around in a daze, trying to figure out what comes next. Ending the affair was hard, but what came after was even harder. There I was, back in my real life, but it didn't feel real anymore. Everything was off, like I was living in someone else's story. My husband and I, we were trying, really trying. He was being so damn understanding, which almost made it worse. I kept waiting for him to yell, to blame me, to do something. But he just didn't. We went to couples therapy, started having date nights again, the whole deal. It was awkward, like we were two strangers learning to be together again. And then there were the nights. The long, lonely nights where I'd lie awake, missing Mr. X. I'd think about calling him, just to hear his voice, but I never did. I'd made my choice, and I had to stick to it. But man, it hurt. It hurt like hell. During the day, I was mom, the wife, the woman who had her life together. But inside, I was a mess. I felt like I'd lost a part of myself, a part one wasn't sure I could get back. My kids, bless them, they were my saving grace. They didn't know anything, of course. To them, mom was just mom. But they kept me grounded, kept me focused on the here and now. As for my husband, we were slowly getting back to something that resembled normal. It wasn't the same as before, couldn't be. Too much had changed, but we were talking, really talking, and that was something. One day, I ran into an old friend, someone I hadn't seen since before the affair. She commented on how happy I looked, how everything seemed to be going great for me. I just nodded and smiled, but inside, I was screaming. If only she knew. Reflecting on everything, I realized I'd been searching for something in Mr. X that I should have been searching for in myself. I wanted excitement, passion, something to break the monotony of my life. But I was looking in the wrong places. Ending the affair didn't magically fix everything. If anything, it opened up a whole new set of problems. But it also opened my eyes. I started seeing a therapist, just for me this time. It was hard, facing up to what I'd done, the choices I'd made. But it was necessary. Through therapy, I began to understand why I'd had the affair in the first place. It wasn't just about feeling lonely or neglected. It was about me, about how I saw myself, how I'd lost myself in the role of wife and mother. I started doing things just for me. I took up painting, something I'd always wanted to try. I started reading again, losing myself in stories that had nothing to do with my life. It was like I was finding pieces of myself I didn't even know were missing. My husband noticed the changes. He'd comment on my paintings, encourage me to take time for myself. It was weird, this new dynamic between us. But it was good, too. It felt like we were building something new, something stronger. As for Mr. X, I thought about him less and less as time went on. He'd always be a part of my story, a chapter I'd never forget. But that's all it was, a chapter, not the whole book. So, that's chapter 5. It's about ending, but it's also about beginning. Beginning to heal, to understand, to rebuild. It's not an easy chapter, but it's an important one. Because sometimes, you have to break everything down to start building it back up again. Life after an affair is like walking on a tightrope without a safety net. Every step is uncertain, every breath is a reminder of the fall you just took. But you keep walking because what else can you do? My husband and I, we were finding our way back to each other, but it was like learning to dance to a completely new tune. Sometimes we stepped on each other's toes, sometimes we moved in perfect harmony. But we were dancing again, and that mattered. There were moments, fleeting moments, when I saw glimpses of the man I fell in love with. And in those moments, I remembered why I chose to stay, why I chose to fight for our marriage. It wasn't just about the kids or the years we'd spent together. It was about us, about the life we'd built and the future we still could have. But the shadows of the affair lingered. There were times when I caught a certain look in my husband's eyes, a look that said he remembered, that he hadn't forgotten. And in those moments, I felt the weight of my choices, the impact of my actions. I had to learn to forgive myself, which was perhaps the hardest part of all. I'd made a mistake, a big one. But I was more than that mistake. I was a wife, a mother, a woman who'd lost her way but was finding it back. Slowly, the pieces of my life started falling back into place. Not the same picture as before, but maybe a better one. A picture with more honesty, more understanding, more of me in it. I won't say I don't think about Mr. X anymore. Sometimes, when I'm alone, my mind wanders back to him, to us. But it's not with longing or regret. It's more like remembering a dream that was beautiful and painful in equal measure. So here I am, at the end of this chapter, standing on firmer ground than before. My marriage isn't perfect, but it's real. My life isn't exciting, but it's mine. And me? I'm still learning, still growing, still healing. But I'm getting there, one step at a time. And that's the thing about life. It doesn't give you neat endings or simple solutions. It gives you messes, challenges,